Alara Petrova was a beacon of quiet strength in a world that often favored the boisterous. With eyes the color of Baltic amber, and a spirit forged in the fires of quiet determination, she had always been the anchor in her small, close-knit family. Her dreams were simple yet profound: to build a loving home, filled with laughter and security, a place where she and her future husband could nurture their shared aspirations. She found what she believed was her kindred spirit in Dmitry Volkov, a charismatic and ambitious young man, with a disarming smile and a seemingly boundless passion for life. He was an architect with visions of crafting sustainable and beautiful living spaces, and Alara, a talented graphic designer with a flair for creating compelling visual narratives, was immediately drawn to his artistic sensibilities and his unwavering belief in a better future. Their courtship was a whirlwind of romantic gestures and shared dreams. They spoke for hours about their hopes, their fears, and their aspirations. Dmitry painted vivid pictures of the home they would build together, a modern marvel of sustainable design, a testament to their love and their commitment to a brighter tomorrow. Alara, in turn, designed intricate logos and marketing materials for his fledgling architecture firm, pouring her heart and soul into helping him realize his professional ambitions. After 2 years of blissful romance, they exchanged vows in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by their closest friends and family. Alara, radiant in a simple white dress, felt like the luckiest woman in the world. She had found her soulmate, her partner in life, the man with whom she would build her dream home and raise a family of her own. However, lurking in the shadows of their idyllic love story was a formidable presence: Irina Volkova, Dmitry's mother, a woman whose personality was as sharp and unforgiving as a Siberian winter. Irina was a force of nature, a woman accustomed to getting her way, a matriarch who ruled her family with an iron fist and a velvet tongue. From the moment Alara entered their lives, Irina viewed her with suspicion and disdain. She saw Alara as an interloper, an outsider who had stolen her beloved son away from her. Irina believed that no woman was good enough for Dmitry, that he deserved someone of higher social standing, someone who could bring more wealth and prestige to the Volkov family. Irina's disapproval manifested in subtle yet constant acts of aggression. She criticized Alara's cooking, her fashion sense, and her career choices. She made snide remarks about Alara's family, subtly implying that they were beneath the Volkovs. She constantly reminded Dmitry of the sacrifices she had made for him, emphasizing the importance of his loyalty to his mother. Despite Irina's relentless negativity, Alara tried her best to maintain a cordial relationship with her mother-in-law. She cooked Irina's favorite meals, bought her expensive gifts, and always treated her with the utmost respect. She hoped that with time, Irina would come to see her as a worthy addition to the Volkov family. But Irina's animosity only deepened with each passing day. She became increasingly demanding, constantly calling Dmitry with trivial requests and expecting him to drop everything to attend to her needs. She manipulated him with guilt trips and emotional blackmail, subtly undermining his relationship with Alara. As the years passed, the pressure from Irina began to take its toll on Alara and Dmitry's marriage. Dmitry, torn between his loyalty to his mother and his love for his wife, became increasingly withdrawn and irritable. He started working longer hours, spending less time with Alara, and avoiding difficult conversations about his mother's behavior. Alara, feeling isolated and unappreciated, tried to talk to Dmitry about her concerns. She explained how Irina's constant criticism was eroding her self-esteem, and how her manipulative behavior was driving a wedge between them. She pleaded with him to stand up to his mother and set boundaries. But Dmitry, weakened by years of Irina's emotional control, was unable to confront her. He dismissed Alara's concerns as overreactions, accusing her of being jealous and unreasonable. He insisted that his mother was simply trying to help, and that Alara was misinterpreting her intentions. The final straw came when Dmitri announced that Irina needed a new house. Her current apartment was too small, too old, and too inconvenient, he explained. She deserved a more comfortable and luxurious living space, a place where she could enjoy her retirement years. Alara was stunned. She and Dmitri had been diligently saving for years to buy their own home, a place where they could finally start their family. They had scrimped and saved, sacrificing vacations and luxuries, all in pursuit of their shared dream. "What about our house, Dmitri?" Alara asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. "What about our savings? We've been working so hard for this." Dmitri avoided her gaze. "Mom needs this more than we do, Alara," he said, his voice laced with guilt. "She's done so much for me. I can't let her live in that awful apartment any longer." Alara knew that Irina could afford a new house on her own. She had inherited a considerable sum of money from her late husband, a fact that she conveniently neglected to mention to Dmitri. But Irina had no intention of spending her own money. She saw Alara and Dmitri's savings as an easy way to upgrade her lifestyle without sacrificing her own financial security. Against her better judgment, Alara reluctantly agreed to help Irina. She and Dmitri pooled their savings and took out a substantial loan to finance the purchase of a lavish villa in an exclusive gated community. The villa was far beyond what they could afford, but Dmitri insisted that it was the only place suitable for his mother. From the moment Irina moved into the villa, she treated it as her personal kingdom. She decorated it with expensive furniture and artwork, transforming it into a monument to her own vanity. She hosted lavish parties, inviting her wealthy friends and flaunting her newfound opulence. Alara and Dmitri, meanwhile, struggled to make ends meet. The mortgage payments were crippling, and they had to work long hours to keep their heads above water. They had no money left for vacations, for entertainment, or even for basic necessities. Their dream of starting a family seemed further away than ever. Irina, oblivious to their financial struggles, continued to demand more and more from them. She expected Alara to cook and clean for her, to drive her to appointments, and to cater to her every whim. She treated Alara like a servant, constantly belittling her and reminding her that she was nothing without Dmitri's support. Dmitri, still under his mother's spell, did nothing to defend Alara. He turned a blind eye to Irina's abusive behavior, passively accepting her mistreatment of his wife. He had become a puppet, controlled by his mother's strings, unable to break free from her manipulative grasp. One evening, after a particularly humiliating encounter with Irina, Alara reached her breaking point. She had spent the entire day cleaning Irina's villa, preparing for a dinner party that Irina was hosting for her wealthy friends. Irina had criticized everything Alara did, from the way she arranged the flowers to the way she set the table. As Alara was washing the dishes after the party, Irina walked into the kitchen. "You know, Alara," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "I sometimes wonder what Dmitri sees in you. You're not particularly attractive, you're not particularly intelligent, and you're certainly not a good cook. You're lucky that Dmitri is such a kind and generous man." Alara's heart shattered. She had endured years of abuse and humiliation, but Irina's words were the final blow. She had given up everything for Dmitri and his mother, sacrificing her dreams, her happiness, and her self-respect. And for what? To be treated like a worthless servant, to be constantly reminded that she was not good enough? Tears streamed down her face as she silently walked out of the kitchen and out of the villa. She had no idea where she was going, but she knew that she could no longer stay in that gilded cage. She had to escape, to reclaim her life, to find her own happiness. Alara spent the night in a cheap motel, trying to process what had happened. She felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and relief. She was angry at Irina for her cruelty and manipulation. She was sad for the loss of her marriage, and for the dreams that would never come true. But she was also relieved to be free from the constant pressure and abuse. The next morning, Alara made a decision. She was not going to let Irina and Dmitri ruin her life. She was going to fight back, to reclaim her power, to rebuild her future. She started by consulting with a lawyer. She learned that she was legally entitled to half of the assets that she and Dmitri had accumulated during their marriage, including the villa that they had bought for Irina. She also learned that she had a strong case for divorce, based on Irina's abusive behavior and Dmitri's failure to protect her. Emboldened by this knowledge, Alara confronted Dmitri. She told him that she was leaving him, that she was filing for divorce, and that she was demanding her fair share of their assets. Dmitri was shocked and devastated. He had never imagined that Alara would leave him. He had always assumed that she would tolerate his mother's behavior, that she would remain his faithful and obedient wife, no matter what. He tried to apologize, to beg her to stay. He promised that he would stand up to his mother, that he would protect her from Irina's abuse. But Alara had heard it all before. She knew that Dmitri was too weak, too dependent on his mother, to ever change. "It's too late, Dmitri," Alara said, her voice cold and resolute. "I'm done. I'm not going to spend another day of my life being treated like a doormat." As Alara prepared to leave, she made one final decision, a decision that would send shockwaves through the Volkov family. She decided to stop paying the mortgage on the villa. She knew that Dmitri and Irina could not afford to pay the mortgage on their own. They had relied on her income to cover the monthly payments. Without her financial contribution, they would inevitably default on the loan. Alara didn't tell Dmitri or Irina about her decision. She wanted them to suffer, to experience the same financial hardship that she had endured for so long. She wanted them to realize the consequences of their greed and their selfishness. Weeks turned into months, and the mortgage payments went unpaid. The bank sent numerous notices, warning Dmitri and Irina that they were in danger of foreclosure. But they ignored the warnings, convinced that Alara would eventually come crawling back, begging to be forgiven. Finally, the inevitable happened. The bank foreclosed on the villa. Dmitri and Irina were evicted, forced to leave their lavish home and find a new place to live. They were furious at Alara, blaming her for their misfortune. They accused her of being vindictive and spiteful. They threatened to sue her, to ruin her reputation, to make her pay for what she had done. But Alara was not afraid. She had finally broken free from their control. She had reclaimed her life, her power, and her future. With the money she received from the divorce settlement, Alara started her own graphic design business. She poured her creativity and her passion into her work, building a successful and fulfilling career. She surrounded herself with supportive friends and family, creating a loving and nurturing community. She never remarried, but she found happiness and contentment on her own. She learned to love herself, to appreciate her own strengths, and to value her independence. As for Dmitri and Irina, they were left to face the consequences of their actions. They lost their wealth, their status, and their reputation. They were ostracized by their friends and family, forced to live in poverty and shame. Irina never understood why Alara had left Dmitri. She continued to believe that Alara was a selfish and ungrateful woman who had ruined her son's life. She died a bitter and resentful woman, alone and unloved. Dmitri, on the other hand, eventually came to realize the mistakes he had made. He regretted allowing his mother to control his life and to mistreat his wife. He tried to apologize to Alara, but she refused to forgive him. He spent the rest of his days living with the knowledge that he had lost the love of his life because of his own weakness and his mother's cruelty. He never remarried, never had children, and never achieved his dreams. He died a lonely and broken man, haunted by the memory of the woman he had betrayed.